Well, let's bring in our guest panel now. Joining me here on set is Negar Mortazavi. She is a senior non-resident fellow at the Center for International Policy. And Abdulla Bandar Al Etaibi, he's assistant professor in international affairs at Qatar University. Good to have you both with us. So first of all, Negar, you know, when you combine the disruption of both oil and gas through the Strait of Hormuz, you put that together, it comes to something like 30% of global energy supplies. That's a big chunk of the world's energy. How long can the world put up with that before we start to see the sort of nightmare scenarios the GCC is warning about?
I mean, I think we're already seeing indication the chokehold on global energy is not a joke. It really is a very big card that the Iranians played. I don't think it was believed by the U.S. president or many in the White House that this is something they can pull off. Nevertheless, they did. Of course, they have geographic advantage. This is a day Iran has been waiting for years. They have been preparing for it, and I think they're willing to
It's been telegraphing this. How did the White House not see this coming?
I don't think they took it seriously. I mean, I'm sure there are experts who have warned President Trump of the various scenarios. We have seen reporting that they have. It just wasn't, I don't think he believed that after the assassination of the top leader and the top brass, Iran can play any of these cards. But the Iranians had been telegraphing, had been threatening, and they really have basically done everything they said they would do step by step as far as escalation.
Abdullah, we're hearing from the GCC a complaint that Iran is charging now for passage through the Straits of Hormuz. Is that a sign that this issue, even if the war ended magically right now, that there is going to be issues that will impact the price of energy going forward, that will continue to impact the whole world?
Well, first of all, Sami, it's it's possible for the war to end now. Let's be honest, the war started in a way that is surprising to so many people and could end in the same way as well. For now, I think that what we see is the Iranian regime is trying to weaponize everything they have. And one of those cards they have on the table is the Strait of Hormuz. And, you know, Strait of Hormuz is one of the major waterways. It's too important to be a battlefield, basically. It's need to have freedom of passing for all countries. Freedom of passage that actually is guaranteed by the international law, and this is important. What Iran is doing is basically widening the conflict, increasing the burden on the U.S., and just increasing the costs of the conflict itself. And what Iran is actually not keeping in mind is that regional countries are the countries that worked and did their best to end and to prevent the war at the beginning. So what's happening now is not helping Iran, not helping the region, and it's not helping anybody. What we see is more pressure on the global economy, more pressure on global security and global energy security as well. And this is unacceptable and contradicting with all laws internationally. And this is, I think, one of the major concerns for GCC countries at the moment, that Strait of Hormuz should be out of the equation between Iran and the U.S.
Okay, it's not only energy, Negar, right? 30% of the world's fertilizer supply goes through the Straits of Hormuz. What does that mean for global agriculture? We're already hearing from some countries that they're struggling now, as we get to the planting season.
I mean, as your guest said, this war has already become regional. And this is, again, one thing Iran had promised, that this war is not going to remain within their borders. They're going to make sure it's going to spill over and impact as many as the neighbors as possible, turn it into a regional war. That a regional conflict was a key word. Even the assassinated supreme leader had been talking about it. And now it's essentially becoming global. And it's the effects of it is being felt all the way through Europe and in Asia. And I want to emphasize that for the Iranians, this is a battle of survival. This is an existential war. This is two nuclear powers with military supremacy attacking them in an unlawful war. This is what members of Congress are saying. The UN has been saying there's no reasoning, no real justification for this war. Every reasoning the White House has put out has almost been refuted. The nuclear issue, the military regime change, people rising up. None of that has happened. And so for them, I mean, they're fighting with not a lot of good options. I mean, I agree. It's hard to justify how you pull in your neighbors, turn this regional, but this is the only way they can do it. It's an asymmetric war. They had different cards to play. They can't match the military might of the U.S. and Israel, and that's actually part of the reason they were attacked, because the U.S. perceived them to be weak. The Israelis perceived them to be a paper tiger, and I think they're proving that they have cards, but it is an asymmetric war, and they're trying to inflict pain wherever they can in these weak points. And it's not just this one strait, potentially another strait.
It still doesn't make it okay, of course, because you're right. The UN, we've heard from the Secretary General to 9 UN experts termed the attack on Iran as an illegal war by the US and Israel, but they've also been expressing concern over Iranian attacks in the region.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And I don't think at this point, I mean, you have the commanders in the driver's seat in Iran. It's not the political figures, it's not the diplomats.
So they just
they're not
want to
thinking
survive.
about, they're not thinking about friendships or allies. They're thinking about winning this war, which for them is surviving, and then they'll think about it after the day is over.
Let me bring Abdullah back in. What is the feeling, as you read the pulse of the GCC? Do they feel that the US has listened and taken into concern the GCC's interests, and indeed the whole world's interests? This is not just the GCC's interests at stake, as people have been pointing out. We know GCC countries were telling the US, don't do this, don't go into war. Do GCC countries kind of feel that they should have been listened to more?
Well, there are so many signs, Sami, actually. Since Gaza war in 2023, we have seen so many escalation in the region and the regional system. And this is what we all in the region have warned about, that this is not good, this is not healthy, this is not going anywhere. This is basically adding more pressure on us. And this is actually what we need. We need stability in the region. We need dialogue. We need a way to fix our problems in a very civil way by dialogue, and this is basically what the GCC have been calling for. However, they found themselves in the middle of this chaos because Iran is trying to drag them into this. And I want to revisit your idea, Sami, that you raised about fertilizers. I mean, it's very important here to talk about that the GCC is not only about oil or fuel, it's about also fertilizers that actually go to so many countries in the world. I saw your report today that in Al Jazeera that Australia would be concerned, Kenya, the US as well. They actually received 51 of their fertilizers from Qatar in the past 5 years. And this is something we're going to feel, not now, but we're going to feel in the next few months.
In a few months. That's an important point. What about also global supply chains being disrupted, not only from the Strait of Hormuz, but there is a threat hanging over the Red Sea, right? So fertilizers, energy supply. When you put all that into the picture, there's a lot of products and needs and services that could be even more disrupted, as Abdullah says, further down the road in a few months, right?
Absolutely. And all of this is why Iranians think this is a card they played well. This is part of the strategy. And they're hoping that by putting this pressure on the region and on the global community, that maybe that pressure can be transferred into Washington to stop the war and to not repeat it again. And just to Abdullah's point, I mean, the GCC countries knew this is coming better than anyone. They warned the White House. They didn't have enough power, not as much as Benjamin Netanyahu did, who finally convinced President Trump to do it. But I think in the White House, and even the president, when you listen to his comments, are surprised by how far Iran has been able to go and escalate and how much they're basically not losing. And this claim that the U.S. is winning or has achieved all of its objectives is just not the reality on the ground in the battlefield, and then also what you see the effect on the global market.
All right, let's thank our guests, Negar Mortazavi, Senior Non-Resident Fellow at the Center for International Policy, and Abdulla Bandar Al Etaibi, Assistant Professor of International Affairs at Qatar University. Thank you both.
Thank you.